How's it, everybody? Welcome to Season 2 of Exponential Africa Live, a weekly live show that focuses on bringing the best thought leadership, technology and innovation to the African continent and the world. When lockdown started in South Africa, I started reminding myself of all the things I was grateful for, from my wife to my family and colleagues to running and even good sunshine. I did this because for the first time, the freedom of being able to run outdoors was taken away from me. Simple things we normally take for granted. I made sure to remind myself of all the amazing things I can be grateful for, and it really helped me during this time. Lockdown has shown us many new things and many new ways of working and living that we didn't even think was possible, and it's been a real eye-opener to say the least. And one thing I've realized after going to literally hundreds of Zoom meetings and online events is that we still need to come together to learn, network and share ideas on how we can make the future better for all. And there's a huge power in connection. And just the other day, Shane and I were having a video call with somebody, and she said, "You guys are the first people I've met outside my company since lockdown." And that made us realize that the ability to meet new people has been missing. Uncommon meetups and conversations aren't currently happening in this new world. So how do we solve this and make a big focus on networking and connection to ensure that, as in Africa, these connections are being made? And we are delighted to announce that the Singularity U South Africa Summit is going online in 2020. People need to come together to learn, unlearn, upgrade and connect. And the SUSA Summit will take place on the 14th and 15th of October 2020. However, you will have full access to the platform for over 4 days from the 13th to the 16th of October to make sure we allow for networking time and deal making. And every week on the show, we're going to be giving away 3 online tickets to the SUSA Summit Online 2020. So make sure to register and stay tuned. The conversation tonight will focus on parenting and lifelong learning. The future of our success as humanity lies in great education. Most parents want their kids to grow up so that they are successful and can make a positive impact in the world. However, it's not that clear on the way forward as a parent, especially because of this pandemic. Is it better to homeschool or to make sure they are in a school or university that is more project-based or that focuses on building human potential rather than grades? How can we educate the youth to develop the right skills needed for the future? And what are those skills? How do we let our teachers adapt to more of a remote working environment? And as this pace of change keeps accelerating, what we learn today becomes irrelevant tomorrow. How do we build a culture of lifelong learning so that we remain curious and motivated to constantly keep learning new skills and tools? Exponential technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, and networks and sensors have become widely more available to amplify and enhance learning in much more empathetic, immersive, and experiential ways. How is this impacting education? Tonight we have Esther Wojcicki, Singularity U faculty on education, an incredible educator and lifelong journalist, as well as Fred Swaniker, founder and chairman of African Leadership Academy. A very special thanks to our sponsor partners, our collaboration partner, the Development Bank of Southern Africa, our global partner Deloitte, and our strategic partner MTN. We really value and thank you for your commitment and dedication to making a positive impact in South Africa and Africa. If you want to keep learning about exponential technologies and thought leadership, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page, click the bell to get notified when we go live, and register on the website to get more info and be eligible for the SUSA Summit Ultra Experience ticket giveaways valued at 10,000 Rand each week. Let's connect and hear the latest news. Let's take a look at the latest tech news that pertain to learning and other exponential technologies. A college kid's fake AI-generated blog pulled the wool over our eyes. We've chatted about OpenAI a couple of times on the show, and their latest language-generating AI tool has done it again. A computer science student from the University of California has created a blog filled with great advice, all of which has been written by GPT-3. And they've even managed to gain some followers. The student said he wanted to see if the AI could be passed off as a human, and I think we can safely say that that has been achieved. Robin the robot is comforting kids in hospitals. An Armenian pediatric clinic has tested a robot companion named Robin. Researchers report an increase in children's appetites and cheerfulness after hanging out with the robot. Robin is 47 inches tall and made of recyclable bioplastic, which can easily be sterilized to minimize the risk of spreading viruses like COVID-19. Karen Kachikian, CEO and founder of Xpepper Technologies, says they aim to change children's perceptions of medical treatments. Continuing with robotics, USC researchers have developed personalized learning robots for children with autism. Children with autism face developmental delays, such as communication and behavioral challenges, with difficulties in social interactions. Researchers are assessing therapeutic interventions where robots can interact with the child's behavior and react appropriately. They're also assessing whether the robots could estimate a child's interest in a task using machine learning. The days are early still, but the findings are looking promising so far. Here's some good news for parents who struggle to teach their children from home during lockdown. MindCET, the EdTech Innovation Hub of Israel's non-profit Center for Educational Technology, has great solutions for distance learning. Cecilia Wassman, Vice President for R&D, says the education systems during lockdown weren't failing because of lack of content. It was because of lack of structure. Indemo, a mindset startup, tackles this head-on by enabling students with self-directed learning skills and a personalized curriculum according to their learning style. Startup eTeacher started as an online Hebrew school and has branched into language instruction, science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths from their 5 virtual schools, reaching 50,000 students from 200 countries. The future of distance learning is sure to get easier as more institutions adapt like these startups have. And if you're worrying about the amount of screen time your toddler has been getting lately, then this story is for you. New research out of the University of Bath's Department of Psychology found that children with high daily touchscreen use are faster at finding targets during a visual search compared to toddlers with little touchscreen time. The next step is for researchers to determine whether this advantage now is also an advantage in the long run. And in other news, the iconic event Burning Man is going digital. Burning Man is synonymous with escaping from reality. It's the opportunity for attendees to rethink ideas whilst in the desert amongst contemporary art, listening to music with little access to running water. This year, the physical event has been cancelled, and the team will be going all in on a virtual gathering. They're attempting to create an experience that incorporates virtual reality, video, and 3D. This feat is massively expensive, and yet organizers have declined sponsorship. Instead, developers and visual artists are creating this event out of the love for Burning Man during their spare time, and I can't wait to attend this event. Today's African Innovation Spotlight is an institution that is paving the way for enlightened learning on the African continent. The Maharishi Institute is a higher education academic institution that truly believes in the genius and potential within everyone. It's this philosophy that has driven them to create the first free university in South Africa, a university that gives the underprivileged a chance at creating their own story. They expand the traditional scope of education to nurture each person as a whole: consciousness, mind, body, and relationships. Their focus courses offer students opportunities to reach their full potential through holistic education that integrates the growth of consciousness. They call it consciousness-based education. This means that learners are equipped with a sense of purpose as well as cutting-edge knowledge and invaluable career skills by the time they graduate. And to date, they've educated over 19,000 students, earning about 1.5 billion rand in salaries collectively. And over their working careers, they will earn an estimated 41.85 billion rand, creating new jobs and building the South African economy. Time to move to the main part of tonight's show. The conversation tonight will focus on parenting and lifelong learning, and how we can create new ways to enhance learning in a much more empathetic, immersive, and experiential way. And how is this impacting education? And what are some of the simple lessons we can take note of to keep curious? Let's welcome our first guest, Fred Swaniker, founder and trustee of African Leadership Academy. Fred is deeply passionate about Africa and believes that the missing ingredient on the continent is good leadership. In line with this, he has founded two organizations that aim to catalyze a new generation of ethical, entrepreneurial African leaders: African Leadership Academy and the African Leadership Network. In recognition of his work in developing African future leaders, Fred was selected as one of the 115 young leaders to meet US President Obama at the first ever President's Forum for Young African Leaders held at the White House in 2010. Fred, welcome to the show. How are you doing? I think you might be on mute there.
Hey, thank you, Mick. Nice to be on the show.
Great to have you. I mean, that was quite an interesting thing just to read in your bio there. So 10 years ago, you were at the White House, and I think it's been quite a journey for you over the last 10 years, right?
Yes, it has. And I think, since that time, not only did we expand the African Leadership Academy into the network, we also opened African Leadership University. And we also have something now called ALX. And collectively, we are working on training 2 million leaders in Africa in the next decade and 3 million in the next 15 years.
I mean, that's extraordinary. What are your plans for that? I mean, because I think originally you were building universities and now you've pivoted. How are you going to achieve that?
Yes, one of the exciting things that this moment is really showing us is that learning can be done in very different modes. So, we were originally expanding our concept by building fully fledged university campuses around Africa. And then we started using, rented spaces around the continent. But now, because of COVID, we are going much more digital. So we've stopped, renting spaces, and we're going to be offering our programs much more through technology. Before we were planning to grow to about 50,000 people in the next 5 years. Now we're going to do maybe 500,000 in the next 5 years. So we're really scaling much faster because we're able to leverage technology and think differently about how education and talent development works in this era. So we're using this moment as a chance to really rethink and not just deal with the crisis, but think about how can we capture some of the exciting opportunities of this moment to do things better and faster.
I think that's so incredible that you just quickly, you've pivoted so fast, and it's actually this pandemic has actually made you, widen your aspirations if they weren't big enough. Now they've actually grown due to the pandemic. What are some of the guidelines you think that parents can take note of in today's times?
Well, I think the first, if I was a parent today, the first thing I would say is really what not to do is to sit still and expect the status quo to remain. One of the things I really believe is that constraints drives innovation. And in Africa, we've always had lots of constraints. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have a lot of infrastructure. We don't have a lot of faculty and teachers. And what COVID has done is that it has increased those constraints. We now have more challenges. So we therefore need to use those constraints to reimagine everything. Think differently. Don't do things the same way as before. So my number one message to parents is don't continue doing the same things as you were doing before. That's the best way to guarantee failure. And then the way I believe, to capture the maximum potential for success for your children is to drop your own assumptions about how learning and education should work and rethink everything, reimagine everything using this moment as a time to change.
No, it's actually a very exciting time. If you have the right mindset, like what you've been saying, it actually is a time where you can create real value. Do you think it's still important for kids to still attend schools and universities, or should parents look at these online homeschooling?
Well, I don't think it's a situation of an either or. At the end of the day, we need to think about how do we bring the best of all the different options that we have together. So, and we as human beings at heart are social animals. We need to interact with people. We need to build relationships for us to be healthy individuals, to be psychologically, well, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think the answer to education for the rest of history is children sitting at home in front of Zoom. That's absolutely not the answer. Those people will not develop properly, and they won't be able to build the relationship they need, et cetera. So it's really about thinking creatively about how do we blend technology and access the world's best content, the world's best education, which you now have available to you, but also think creatively about how to use spaces. So, for example, in our case, even though we are leveraging technology to deliver a lot of the learning experiences around the continent, we're still going to be bringing students together in spaces in different cities around Africa. For example, once a month, we could rent out an auditorium and bring all the students who are studying in a city together to learn from each other, to meet each other, to build relationships where they can showcase the projects they're working on, and investors and employers can come and meet them, etc. If you're learning online, you could meet with your peers once a week in a coffee shop or in a park and meet and discuss ideas. You can meet with your teacher every 2 weeks in a co-working space and get some one-on-one tutoring. So it's really about being more agile and thinking creatively about how you can leverage technology and physical interaction to bring the best of all elements together. Because peer learning is critical. We learn from other people, and you need to therefore be able to find ways to do that online, but also offline. So these are some of the things that I think are important in this time. I also think it's important that parents start to think through, what skills are going to be necessary for the future. So I believe entrepreneurship is going to be much more important now because, especially, thanks to COVID, there are fewer and fewer jobs available. So young people must be prepared to create their own jobs. We need to think about preparing people with digital skills because the world is going to become much more digital. So how, before you had to learn French and English and Afrikaans and other languages, you need to now learn coding as another language, right? We need to also get young people to really learn how to learn above everything else and ignite curiosity in them so that they can become lifelong learners. So these are all some of the things that, if I was a parent, I'd be using this opportunity to just how we've been doing things and actually enable your child to emerge stronger and better prepared for this world and not only be mired in a crisis.
No, love it, love it. Thank you for those nuggets. I think Esther's joined now, so we're going to move over to welcome our next guest, and we'll come back to you in a moment. Please, can I welcome Esther Wojcicki, who is a Singularity Faculty on Education. Dr. Esther Wojcicki is an internationally known journalism teacher and the founder of the Palo Alto High School Media Arts Program. She is also the CEO of Global Moonshots in Education, an American journalist, educator, and vice chair of the Creative Commons Advisory Council. Esther is the author of How to Raise Successful People and Moonshots in Education. Esther, thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you.
I'm actually really excited, Fred, because I just want you to know Fred came to visit my media arts program and at Palo Alto High School. And we had a very long conversation, and it turns out that we think very much aligned. It's great because some of the things that he just said, I agree with 100%. So thank you very much for getting somebody to be together with me who is so aligned in educational philosophy. That's great.
Yeah, well, I think it's so important, to give real value to parents, and there would be no better two people than you guys. So for us, it's a real treat, and you're back by popular demand. Everyone is really loving some of your theories. What have you seen in terms of the pandemic and how it's changing the way we're learning and working, and what have you been seeing over the last couple of months?
Well, so the number one thing I'm seeing here in the United States and probably worldwide, but it's primarily here in the United States because that's where I'm located. I'm in California, is that there's tremendous sort of anxiety and fear about what's going to happen with the kids and the school year. And so parents are very fearful, and kids are perhaps, as Fred described, spending 7 hours a day in front of a Zoom call, and everybody's worried about what they call, the COVID slump. And I do think that this is the wrong way to look at the problem. I do think this is an opportunity for kids to learn other skills. And the most important thing for them to learn is how to learn. And how to learn is not necessarily sitting in front of a computer being lectured at for 7 hours a day. So I have the philosophy that the most effective way to learn is active learning. And so it would be great if kids could be peer to peer, could get together even online if parents are afraid of the virus, and then work on a project that they consider interesting to them. And it would be great, even better, if they could meet up with these other kids, if they're local, once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever, because education is really about relationships. I remember when I discovered that the kids weren't really coming to school to see me, I was slightly crushed. They were coming to see their friends. That was number one. Okay, then I might have been number two. But still, I think it's most important. Kids miss their friends. And so whatever we can do to enhance that meeting, whether it's online or in person, I think that's going to help a lot. And, the pandemic's not going to last forever, even though we think it is. Feels kind of bad at the moment. But, if you look historically at pandemics, they do end. And so, what can we do to make the best of this time where kids are pretty much stuck at home and can't do what they're supposed to do? And as I said when I first started, the most effective thing for them to do would be to learn how to learn online. And that means giving them some opportunity to explore and to collaborate with each other on whatever it is that they want. Could be programming, could be, soft skills, could be, art, or could be music, whatever they're interested in, I think would be a way to do it. And then if you want your kids to go to school and, be part of the Zoom generation here, perhaps it could be minimized. So maybe it's the morning and not the whole afternoon. Or actually, I'd love to talk to superintendents and to people who are in charge of the education platform, because the most important thing for them to do really would be to give some freedom to the teachers, to allow the teachers to do things that are a little bit more creative and revolutionary. So that is, in a nutshell, what I am thinking about the pandemic. I also suggest, of course, that it would be great to read my book, which describes my acronym, which is TRICK. The book is organized into those categories, TRICK, and it stands for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. And I go through how those are really the most important attributes that a teacher can have, or a parent can have, or it can business manager, a project manager, or a leader can have. You want to trust your children when they're small so that they then believe in themselves and trust themselves and respect their opinions and their ideas, because, even though those ideas are a little wacky, let's give them the this sense that they can be trusted and respected, and then they'll have a lot of perseverance and grit, which is what everybody wants kids to have. Anyway, those are my ideas.
No, I love these ideas. And, you made me think of one important point that you made there, which was if you want to get good at something, you need to be a practitioner. So, when painting came out in the early days, people weren't good at painting, but the guys that, got the paintbrushes and actually started working in it became the world-class painters. So you need to be a practitioner. As you said, you learn by doing.
That's right. You learn by doing, and you do have to be a practitioner. I mean, none of us, you can't learn to read or to ride a bike by reading a book about it, or swimming. You can't learn to swim. You can't learn to be creative by reading a book about it or sitting in a lecture where someone tells you about creativity. You actually have to do it. And in my classes, I gave kids a lot of opportunity to be creative. And the number one thing, the condition that I had to provide in order for them to be creative was I had to make sure it was okay to make a mistake. And so that was the philosophy of my classroom. If you do it perfectly, then, probably you don't need to be here in school. But most people make mistakes when they're learning. And the more mistakes you make, it's okay. All you have to do is redo it. And so, and I did that with my children at home. They didn't learn to pour the cereal the right way the first time. It was like all over the floor, and the dog was really happy. But I can tell you that eventually they learn to do all these things really well. And it's by doing it, and not by listening to somebody tell you how to do it or by watching somebody do it. I mean, if you could learn by watching someone do it, my God, we would all be Olympic swimmers because we always watch the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say, I can sort of make it across the pool, but I'm not an Olympic swimmer in spite of all the swimming I've watched.
There's a famous guy called Julius Yago, and he learned to throw javelin by watching YouTube and then going out and practicing, and watching his favorite heroes and Olympic champions, and then going and practicing in the field, and he's become a champion javelin thrower.
That's the practicing in the field is the key. If you watch the Olympic swimmers, then jump in the pool and then try to do what they're doing, you might be able to do it, but it's going to take a while.
No, awesome. I think we're getting a lot of questions coming through. Let's join in with Fred. And Fred, I'm going to ask. There's a first question that's come through for you from Tokolize, who's asking, what is your advice on how to foster entrepreneurial drive in a child within the constraints and opportunities of today? I have no desire for my daughters to ever be employees. Starting with an easy one.
I agree. That's tough.
So the way that I believe that entrepreneurs, in fact, leaders of all kinds are created is, you need to bring three things together. The first is people who end up being entrepreneurs are people who have some kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And in my experience, people who have that are people who have courage, they have passion, they have resilience, they have imagination, and they're driven by trying to solve a problem in society. So one thing I would encourage you to is get your daughters to learn about the world, to go onto society, to see the biggest challenges and problems that society is facing, because that will then trigger their entrepreneurial ideas. If you look at, for example, one of the biggest problems we have in Africa is urbanization. About 700 million people are going to move into African cities in the next 40 years. So that's going to bring a lot of issues around traffic and housing and sanitation and urban planning. So those are many problems. But that also means many, many great entrepreneurial ideas, because if there's a lot of garbage that's going to be created in cities, someone needs to be a garbage cleaner, and they could become a billionaire by doing that. If there's lots of low-cost housing that needs to be created, then you can be the one to figure out how to do that, and then that becomes the idea. So The best ideas come out of understanding problems that exist in society. And the good news is that there are a lot of problems in Africa, right? So this is an entrepreneur's paradise. And so I'd expose your daughter to all those problems and get them to really spark their entrepreneurial spirit and their potential. The second thing you need to bring together is practice. You learn how to be an entrepreneur by being an entrepreneur. Like what Esther's been saying, I completely believe it. You can't do this in a theoretical way, right? A lot of research shows that to fully develop someone's potential, only 10% of it can be done in the classroom. 20% comes from what they call developmental relationships with your mentors, with your peers, and with your coaches. And so let them go out, build relationships, learn from their peers. And then the third thing, that 70% comes from doing, right? So that 10, 20, 70 rule. So they've got to do. And that's how they will then learn to be an entrepreneur. So get them to start could be a lemonade stand that they do outside of your house. They could be, sewing dresses and selling them, small things. That will give them practice to do bigger things later. And then the final thing you need is a network, right? So no matter how good your skills are, if you don't have access to the right networks, people who could mentor your daughter, who can open doors, invest in her, give her first customer, then she won't be able to achieve her impact. So potential, entrepreneurial spirit, plus practice, plus networks. You bring those three things together, you can create an entrepreneur.
No, I love it. Esther, what are your views on that?
Honestly, I love what Fred just said. He's right on all areas. I think the potential can be enhanced by giving kids a sense of belief in themselves. A lot of kids are just afraid to make a mistake. And so that's why they want to always follow the directions. And parents, unfortunately, somehow inadvertently play into this by doing a lot of things for their kids. I think it's not a good idea to keep doing things for your kids all the time, because what you're doing, while you might make their life a little bit more pleasant, but you're disempowering them, because they don't then feel like they're capable of doing these things without your help. And that's a really important thing. You want kids to think that they can do it without your help. So I think, getting this potential going means giving them the opportunity to make mistakes with your support. And then practice, I also believe that practice is the key. So you can watch something on YouTube and decide that you want to do it. And practice is really the key. Malcolm Gladwell says in one of his books, I think David and Goliath, that it takes 10,000 hours of practice to become a real expert at something. So I'm not sure that I think that the 10,000 hours is necessary. You might be able to do it for fewer than 10,000 hours. That's a long time. But if you want to become a world-class expert in something, I guess maybe you do have to do that. And then the network, as Fred was talking about, the network is your peer group. I know my students will say, well, I don't really want to work with that guy. I don't really like him. And I was like, well, maybe the main thing you should do, I'll move you to another group. If you go home and ask your parents, do they love all the people they work with? And if they say yes, then you get to move. But if they don't say yes, then you have to learn to work with that person, because those people are all part of your generation and your peer group. We all need to learn to work together. Anyway, I can tell you, I never had a kid come back and tell me their parents loved to work with all the people they were working with. So my program worked out really well, and the kids all turned out to work really effectively together and accept each other, and work together. That's what you want. That's your network, because those people will be there to help you. And then you want to form a network also with mentors, people that from companies who can possibly mentor and help you achieve your goals. And hopefully there is a program in South Africa where, people that are working in various industries can volunteer to be mentors for kids, because that can play a huge role in entrepreneurship.
Interesting. We've got another question here from Mark Nasilla, who's asking, are kids learning too many subjects at primary and secondary school? Could they be more successful if they focused on just 2 or 3 things? Just like it's evident in sport, e.g. golf as an example. Fred, you want to start by answering this?
I do think that we often get distracted with things like the number of subjects that students are studying. I think that at a primary school level, if I was to say limit, I think from a national level, trying to think about how we would get better outcomes nationally, I would limit what people study in primary school, and probably focus them just on English and math, right? Because those end up being the building blocks for so much more that you can do later on in life. Physics, chemistry, biology, so many things that you do later on in life can come if you have the foundation in those 2 things. And very often, if you're spreading ourselves too thinly across all these things, you can't build the foundation in those things. That being said, I do believe that what matters most is learning how to learn, right? Not how many subjects you do, etc. So even if you're narrowing the scope of what they're doing officially as subjects, it's critical that we get young people to learn how to learn. And the reason why this is important is that if you think about the world that we live in now versus the world we lived in the past, when schools were built, when universities were created 500 years, 1,000 years ago, we lived in a world where information was scarce. So you had to go to the school and learn it from 2 sources, the head of the teacher or from the library book, right? Today, we live in a world where information is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. So that means you can really move from a unimodal way of learning to a multimodal way of learning, where where the dependence of the learning is not the professor or the teacher in the classroom, but the student, and they take control of their own learning. And today, a child in a rural village in Africa has access to more information on their mobile phone than someone who was doing a PhD at Oxford 30 years ago. And most parents haven't realized this. Most schools haven't realized this. And the teacher is still thinking that they are the one who has the most responsibility. So we need to get that changed and flip the responsibility for the learning from the professor or the teacher to the student, and get them to learn how to learn. And then they'll be ready for the rest of their lives to learn new things as the world changes from different things. What Esther was talking about, how there's no, you learn how to ride a bike by doing, and etc. There's one of my favorite teachers is a guy in Finland. His name is Pekka Pura, and he teaches his class entirely without teaching them. He just lets them learn by themselves. And when I asked him why he does it, he says, he believes that most human beings start learning how to do things by themselves around the age of 6 months. Because just imagine, there's no curriculum that teaches you language. There's no curriculum that teaches you how to walk. You just learn by yourself from watching others and by doing, right? And so we have this innate ability to learn. Yet when we go to school, we start to make you helpless, and we take away that ability. And then you become more and more helpless. And by the time you get to secondary school or university, you are just helpless, waiting to be told what to do. So we need to get back to that natural human ability that we have and spark that in people. And that's the most important thing that school should be doing. It's not so much about how many subjects are. It's really about how do we get young people to learn how to learn and to realize that it's their responsibility to grow themselves, not to become that helpless, independent person.
No, I think that is really a great insight, and that actually leads into Esther. You talk about that when within your trust, in your trick method, giving the kid enough trust to let themselves fall asleep when they're a 6-month-old.
Exactly. I mean, Fred, you did such a great job with that, honestly. I talk about this all the time because I say the same thing. Actually, when I was going to school, so I went to school in the 1950s, I can tell you the main thing that I had to learn with was the teacher. I had to listen to the teacher, or I had to go to the library. There was no other way to do it. And so I was stuck doing those two things. And by the time I graduated from high school, the number one thing that the education system was trying to teach me to do was follow directions. I was really good at following directions, but I was not so great at being innovative or creative or any of that, because that wasn't valued. And back in those days, it didn't really matter that much, to be honest, because everything, you were just channeled into a certain job role. But today the jobs require innovation and creativity and entrepreneurship, and you cannot learn those skills with the old system. But the old system somehow seems to be really hard to move out. People still think that the best way to learn is to have kids sit there and listen to a lecture and read a book and then take a test on things that they don't think are very meaningful for them. And so we need to help them understand that learning how to learn using all the technical devices that we have is really the way to go. In the United States, actually, in many schools, I would say maybe 80 or 90% of the schools, they ban cell phones. And it's like, oh my God, why would you do that? Because what you want to do is teach your kids how to use the cell phones intelligently and not ban them, and or teach them how to find information online using their iPad or their tablet or their computer, whatever it is. And then also, as the teacher in Finland, that is a great example, giving kids an opportunity to learn the way they were learning when they learned how to, I don't know, walk or talk or, think or whatever. And Sir Ken Robinson was an education philosopher from London who unfortunately just passed away, was one of my great inspirations. I thought he was a great human being, great philosopher. He said that kids are 95% of the kids are creative in kindergarten. But by the time they reach 12th grade, only 5% are creative. And what is the world looking for? I mean, we're looking for creativity. I mean, just like Fred said, urbanization in Africa is going to be a major problem in the next 40 years. We need people to help solve those problems, not go back and look at history and do it the same way that it was done. We need creative solutions for the problems that we're going to be facing. So
sorry to interrupt you.
That's important.
Yeah, so I just wanted to have a follow-up from you. We've got a question from Patricia Gomez, who's asking, how do we help kids find their passion then? Because, especially once they're in school.
Well, I let them find their passion by letting them explore and let them do a variety of things. Some of the things are a little crazy. So in my journalism program, the reason that that's been so incredibly successful is because I let them decide what they want to write about. Do they want to write features, reviews, movies, product reviews? Do they want to write news, opinion? You can try one and like it, you can try another, you can try. So it's this exploration of being able to write about whatever it is that you're interested in that helps them find their passion. And I think the problem with all the other opportunities that school offers is that there's no opportunity to really to be on your own, to think independently. There's only an opportunity to follow the direction that the school sets you on the path to do. And so, I just remember one of my daughter's friends, when she was like 5 years old, she was only interested in ants. I'm not kidding, ants. And she used to find ants all over the place and, follow them. And I was like, oh my God, what is this kid going to do in life, you know. She was a beautiful girl. Anyway, turns up she grew up, of course, to be a beautiful human being. And her specialty today, she's got a doctorate in insect behavior. And of course, it's got some sort of technical name that I don't know. But, you know, she's an expert in, it turns out, insects and the way that they behave impacts the world as a whole. And we need to know how they're behaving. So here was a passion that she had that her parents let her pursue. And who would have ever guessed that this is, you know, where she headed? I think it's important for you to let your kids explore. And whatever they're exploring online or whatever in person, give them that opportunity. And don't be as judgmental. A lot of people tend to be really judgmental. They're like, I'm an adult, I've already made a mistake, and I know that that doesn't work. And no, you aren't going to do it. I think that creates, kids then lose the ideas that they might have to start just because they feel then discouraged.
No, so I think that leads me on to my next question about exploration, and it's actually coming from Shane, who a lot of parents are thinking this at the moment. You know, Fred, what is your view on games, particularly Fortnite and Roblox? Are they becoming the new social media for under 15-year-olds? You know, we are seeing this migration into these metaverses and these new types of gaming worlds. What are your views on that?
Well, I think you know, games are very important to allow children to imagine, right? I mean, when I grew up, the games that I played were you know, with Lego, right? I remember getting some Lego toys, and that was something I had fun imagining and building homes and things like that. But also, you know, as a child in Africa, you will make things out of barbed wire and Coke cans and build a little car out of that and push it in the dusty streets. And that's how a lot of my creativity was sparked. Now, of course, in the 21st century, now some of those games are being played online, and you know, it's a different, but it's the same thing. It's getting young people to dream and to imagine new things and to explore and to, you know. So I think games are good, but like anything in excess is you know can become addictive, etc. So I think, you know, I would encourage a variety of games, not just online games. Right? Let them do some time online, play those games, but also have them play games with their friends offline. You know, give them board games, give them toys they can play with in person. Yeah, but I think games in general are very important. I would just say, think about the diversity, because then that makes them even more creative versus if they just see one way of engaging.
No, I totally agree, and I think, you know, gamification is you know, one of the biggest tools of the future we can use for incentives and motivation and things like that.
So,
yeah,
can I just say a thing about games?
yeah, sure.
The reason kids like to play games is because they get to compete against another kid. It's fun. And also, I think it's the competition and the collaboration. If you were playing that game by yourself, you might find it interesting, but it wouldn't be sticky the way Fortnite is and the way Roblox is. They get to collaborate and be with their friends. So actually, I'm working on a platform with former students of mine where we're trying to build games. It's a learning opportunity that also involves gaming. And because, of course, I've been passionate about this my whole life, I'm trying to make education much more exciting and sticky. And anyway, this new platform, which will appear in the middle of September, is called tract.app, TRACT.app. And I'll be happy to send it to you when it's ready, Nick, because I think you might be exciting for everybody.
No, absolutely, and we're excited to hear you talk about it at our online summit in October. So we'll hear more about it then. It sounds like a really incredible way of doing after-school learning or at-home learning. Also,
That's
do you want to
right.
tell us a bit about VR? What are your thoughts on virtual reality and learning through VR platforms?
So I love VR. It's fun to use. I would say that the most difficult thing for a teacher in the classroom is the headsets. Managing the headsets is very difficult. And so VR, I think, has been held up by the fact that the equipment that you need to use it is a little bit clunky for teachers to use. I would say on a personal level, maybe at home you can use VR, and then you can do a lot of things with VR at home. So maybe that's a possibility now while kids are at home. It turns out that using VR as a learning opportunity is really effective. People learn quickly through VR. They travel, they do all kinds of things because the mind thinks that they're actually doing it. And so the key is the doing. And so that's why I think VR does work in that space. But if somebody could figure out a way for us to do VR without having to have all those headsets, that would revolutionize online learning.
So we actually have that platform that we've been working on specifically, and I believe that it is the next wave of learning through these virtual platforms, because it's a lot more engaging, and it has that sort of that memory of the games that the kids are all playing in and socializing in. Fred, very quickly, what are your thoughts on VR? And then we're going to go to one closing question and some closing remarks.
I think VR has a lot of potential, especially if we can get it to be live, immersive VR. So you can imagine, today, if you are in a school and your teacher isn't that good, you're forced to learn from that teacher. But you could imagine a situation where we can have the best teachers in the world available to you on VR. So if you put it on, maybe it's done in the form of eyeglasses and much more less cumbersome than the platforms today. You could be transported into that great teacher's class somewhere else and be able to engage with them and other students and everything. So I think it's very powerful, you can take people out into the field. They can be in another part of the world and learn, by seeing things 360 degrees. It's a very powerful way of learning, and I think we're just starting to see its potential now.
No, thanks for that. We're going to take one more question from Portia Haynes, who's asking, do you think that it would help if we start engaging students on employability earlier and before they apply for tertiary education? So Fred, if you could start with this, and also just if you could end with just some advice for anyone watching, how to keep curious and keep remaining, that desire to want to keep lifelong learning, just as your closing statements, and then we'll go to Esther. We've already run out of time.
Exposing young people to employability programs before university, absolutely. I would be getting young people exposed to real world from the age of 10, 11. Have them follow you to work, shadow you, get them to shadow your friends, get them to start thinking about what they want to do, and get them to start working, because they should be working from the time they're 14, 15 in internships and summer jobs and all of those things, the way they learn how to show up every day, how to be responsible, how to communicate, how to ask good questions. These are things that will help them later on when they get into the workplace. So the sooner you can do that, the better your child will be prepared. Because the university is not going to do that for you. That's the purpose of the university. It's a knowledge enterprise, not a skills enterprise. It's not an employability enterprise. So if you think you're going to send your child to a university to get a job, you're mistaken. The only way they're going to learn how to do that is by doing it and get to them as soon as possible and get them into internships, etc. And then my final closing remarks in terms of how to create people who are lifelong learners is I really think that the most important thing you can do to your child is get them to stop thinking about graduation. You're never going to, if you say you are never graduating, you're just starting your education and you will never end it. So you're going to go through different schools, etc., but that's just the beginning of your learning. Then you need to really get young people to drive that curiosity, that passion, get them exposed to many things that they're passionate about, right? Let them follow their passions and ignite in them this desire to keep growing themselves and learning themselves. And most importantly, get them to remain curious, remain hungry, and remain humble and never believe that they have arrived. And that what you're taking them through, primary school, secondary school, university, is just the beginning of their education. It's not the end. When they graduate, that's really just when they're starting, this lifelong learning. So try and remove this whole notion of I'm going to take my child to school to 12th grade or to university, and then they're done. That's really not going to set them up for success. So that would be my final advice.
No, thanks for that. And Esther, over to you for some final closing comments.
So, first of all, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for including me. My final comments are to remember my acronym TRIC: trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. Treat your children with trust, give them some respect, and whatever their wacky ideas are, listen to them, at least listen. Give them independence, collaborate with them on all kinds of decisions, and treat them with kindness. I cannot tell you how important that is, not just for the parents, but it's important in the classroom and it's important in the business world. If you want your employees to be really passionate and engaged, you need to use the TRIC model. Everyone likes to be trusted and respected and given independence. And they want to be collaborated with, and kindness. We need more kindness in this world. People will do so much more when they're treated with kindness. And also, following up on what Fred said, be sure to remember that lifelong learning starts at birth, and give kids the opportunity to continue their lifelong learning by following their own ideas and being online and learning how to find information online instead of constantly being told what to do. So thank you very much for including me in this amazing session in Africa.
No, thanks to both of you. We look forward to hearing more from you at the Singularity Youth South Africa Summit online in October on the 14th and 15th. And we are so grateful that you could spend the time with us. We're getting comments in the chat. Where did the time go? People want more. So thanks so much to both of you. It's been really incredible, and we are grateful for your insights and your views. Please, for the rest of you, don't go anywhere. We've got our giveaways up next. Tonight we are giving away 3 Ultra Experience tickets to the Singularity Youth South Africa Summit Online 2020, valued at 10,000 Rand per ticket, which includes the 4 days of access to the SUSA Summit Online platform, as well as unique experiences during the summit. Let's draw our winners. Perrin, can you spin the randomizer, please? And congratulations to Seth Peterson, Sipile Ndlovu, and Prasanna Nana. You guys have won yourselves free tickets to the Singularity Youth South Africa Summit Online 2020. And that's all we have, folks, for today. Let's keep learning and upgrading our mindsets to build a better tomorrow. We'll be back next week with an amazing panel on investing in disruptive innovation and which technologies are on a growth curve that is worth investing in. We have some incredible guests next week with Kathy Wood, who's the CEO and founder of ARK Invest, Andile Ngaba, who's the chairman and founder of Convergence Partners, and Paul Pagnato, who is the CEO and founder of Pagnato Corp. You can go to the website to start registering for investing in disruptive innovation, to put in your calendar, get informed, and stand a chance to win in the Share the Tech Love giveaway next week and win a free Ultra ticket to the SUSA Summit Online 2020. We've got one last section for tonight. Each week we end on giving you some tech hacks or some hacks for life. And tonight we're going to be looking at some parenting hacks to implement in your life to make big differences. There's no simple way to go about parenting. Some days all you can do is your best and hang on for dear life. But here are a few techniques from Esther Wojcicki's How to Raise Successful People, simple lessons for radical results that you can add to your repertoire of skills when it comes to raising children. And make sure to go out and get her book if you don't have it already. Parenting Hack 1. Trust yourself and your parenting. Trust yourself and the choices you make as a parent, and only then will you be able to trust your child to take important steps toward empowerment and independence. Parenting hack 2. Respect your child's autonomy and individuality. Your child probably has a strong idea of who they are and what their life should look like. And even if it doesn't seem that way, they still need the space to find themselves. It's your job to nurture that. Parenting hack 3. Teach them independence early. Teach your child to be independent at an early age. That way, they'll be able to cope with adversity, setbacks, boredom, and unavoidable aspects of life. Parenting hack 4. Work together as a family. Collaboration entails working together as a family. Encouraging your child to contribute to discussions and decisions. Asking for their ideas and working together to find solutions. Parenting hack 5. Model kindness as a behavior. As much as parents love their children, they tend to become familiar with them and take basic kindness for granted. Model kindness as a behavior. Teach them gratitude. Teach them to be forgiving and of service to others. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. Join our social media pages as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Mick Mann. Let's future-proof Africa together. Keep smiling.